Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have a good colleague and friend, former Navy SEAL, Mark Devine, and we talk about not only the similarities between the Navy SEALs and the Blue Angels. We get into some deep personal, psychological, how do you go through therapy? How do you transition from the military into the business world? We talk about Zen meditation. We talk about the 5 mountains that are so important in everyone's personal and professional life. Mark is a game changer. He is part of Unbeatable Mind. He founded that. And let's dive in to how a Navy SEAL and a Blue Angel see the world. Glad to be here. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the High Performance Zone. Today, I have a fellow brother, a warrior, and someone I'm so excited to spend some extra time with. Mark Devine, Navy SEAL, but more importantly, a game changer in this world. And Mark, I'm so grateful that you had me on your podcast not too long ago. Thank you for being here and glad to be here. Welcome.
Glad to be here too. John, thank you. You rock. It's an honor to be on your show. Thanks.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for wearing the shirt too, man. It looks really powerful on you. I mean, amazing.
It's an easy one to put on. Let's put it that way.
Hey, I know that on our podcast together, and by the way, your podcast, everybody, make sure you go to Unbeatable Mind. It's unbelievable podcast that Mark puts on. We talked about a lot of things. You know what I was thinking about is, first off, just jumping into the similarities and the differences of between the Navy SEALs and the Blue Angels. I want to unpack that a little more because I think the audience would really love to hear that inside perspective that you and I have, right? And personally, I want to learn. You know, I know you've you know so much about the SEALs, and of course I do on the Blues. So I was thinking about starting with the basic concepts of the brief and debrief. How do the SEALs go about using those two concepts?
Okay, so the SEALs, for us, we're not flying a $100 million piece of equipment that could, if you augured in, sure, obviously your last moment. But what we're trying to do is organize a sometimes not an insignificant number of people to do a highly complicated mission where people are trying to kill you. So it has the same level of risk, but it's just a very different orientation. And so what we have to do is get all those individuals to see the same thing in their mind. And I know this is very similar to what you guys are doing. When you fly a mission profile that includes more than one jet, which you do in the Blues, everyone's got to be able to see the same thing, but also understand their relationship as an individual to the whole. So with a SEAL brief, and you think about this also in the context of a company, like a CEO, everyone's got their individual perspective. And if that's what you limit them to, and they can't see the bigger whole, then they might drive their little part down the wrong lane, and not help you get to that goal. So the SEAL debrief is it's very meticulous. Everyone has a piece or a part in putting it together, the brief. It's not just the commander who puts the brief together. Yep. Right. So me as the commander would task out, the different department heads and the different leaders to do their part. Intel does their part, the communicators do their part, the patrol leaders or the mission leaders do their part. And even the helicopter pilots and the submarine people, they do their part, and everyone's a contributor. And then you pull all this together and it ends up being a little bit, it seems unwieldy, but there's a purpose for it. So you get like this anywhere from a 50 to a 75 page PowerPoint that's embedded with a ton of videos and pictures, and not as many words. The words will be in supporting documents, or you can click through to those. So it takes a while to put these together. Now, mind you, the SEAL planning process is extremely fast compared to, let's say, a general military unit or a conventional military unit. We're planning and out the door, in hours, not days. Depending upon the complexity of the mission, of course, right? So we can plan on the back of the mission if we hit a target and find intel that says, the bad guy's at another target. Well, that's one type of planning process. That's back of the napkin type stuff. We're really good at that. But then let's say the Bin Laden raid, that took meticulous planning. The brief there, happened before every mission rehearsal. They did a brief and a debrief. And then the brief for the actual mission itself was several hours long. And, everyone got a visual representation of what the target looked like and what their part looked like and their flow and, what the objective or what victory would look like. Right. And victory is a range of things, in a VUCA military setting. Like it's not one specific thing. That's why we say kill or capture, right? A capture is actually better because then you can interrogate them. In the case of bin Laden, it probably wasn't better, so the guys knew that kill or capture had there was a preference placed on the former because of the complexities of dealing with the latter, right?
Yeah.
So that's the brief, is that it really, in my opinion, is to get everyone on the same page so they're visualizing the same thing when they go to sleep at night, right? And when they wake up in the morning, the imagery is there and they're practicing that mission. They're winning in their mind before they ever step foot on the battlefield.
That's
do you want
brilliant.
to go to the debrief right now or just stop there?
No. Let me jump in and give some of the similarities and then we'll go to the debrief for sure. Because that's so similar to what we did in aviation too. What you were describing on a big plan like the bin Laden operation, we call it a strike brief, right? And you know this many times because the SEALs are sometimes involved in this. It depends on the mission, but it is about getting, in this case, on the carrier, all the different units together. Everybody does have different roles and responsibilities. Sometimes you may be in a fighter squadron, so you're out there air cover shooting people down. You may be the attack squadron, so you're actually dropping the ordnance. You may be the electronic warfare, which is protecting and sanitizing the area. So you know that there's different people with different roles. You got tankers and all this kind of stuff. So that is very similar. What I really liked, what you talked about though, which I think was really brought home to me when I was on the Blues, is this visualization process, this ability to get everybody not only aligned, because that's fine. We have to get people aligned, but to actually visualize the success and the outcome of not just the mission, but your specific role in that. And what I realized, Mark, was on the Blues, we spent way more time doing that. And that's why I'm curious to see about you guys than the standard planning process. I mean, that was, like you said, it was standard. We could replicate that. We're in a different air show every week and you're, different same process overlaid on a different target. So tell me a little bit more about that visualization or the mental aspect of your personal preparation and then with the team.
Sure. And we weren't necessarily taught this back in the day. We just kind of did it. The good guys did it, right? The most effective operators. And now it's something that I've been teaching, the SEALs. And so visualization of their performance, as well as visualization of the mission, their role, as well as the outcome, are all parcel of how we train the modern day spec ops.
What's interesting, Mark?
I was not a modern day spec op.
No, I'm with you. And I know you're training the modern day guys. That's exactly the same on my team. We weren't taught visualization. Nobody came in and said, here's the keys to visualization. Here's why we're doing it. I'll never forget the first time I was in a Blue Angel brief, right? And I was an applicant. I wasn't selected yet, right? And we only allow applicants in on the brief. Like nobody can be on the debrief unless you're a Blue Angel or an ex-Blue Angel, right? So I remember sitting in that briefing room and you're trying to be on your best behavior and you're hoping that they'll select you. And it's, you shake hands with everybody, then you sit down off to the side and you just observe. And it started like a normal, fighter pilot brief or SEAL brief. They're looking at what's our objectives, what's the safety things and all this. All of a sudden, these guys broke into this group visualization. I'll never forget it, right? Because it's the first time I saw it. And so they're on this group visualization and I'm looking at them and I'm looking, there's one other guy in the room who actually was not a fighter pilot or not a Blue Angel, also another applicant. And he's looking at me and I'm looking at him and we're both looking at our like, what is this guy? Is it a seance? I mean, but here's what I didn't tell him, Mark. I remember sitting there going, you know what? This is weird, but I can be weird if that's what it takes to be on this team. And what I learned later was the power of what was happening there. And just like you, translating that now to people in normal situations. So it's so cool that we had the same experience, but go back to that visualization.
That is cool. Yeah. And I call that winning in your mind, right?
I love it.
You got to win. You got to win. You got to architect the victory in your mind and you've got to practice it. And the more you practice it, the more confidence you have, the more belief you have that it'll come true. And also the more skill you have, because you're greasing the neurobiological groove of success of the actions that are going to happen. And I think there's more to it than that, but we can get into that later.
Yeah.
But so for us nowadays, and for my personal practice, when it comes to the mission,
Yeah.
it's two-sided, and we've already addressed it a little bit. But one is like, what's my role in this?
Okay.
What are my performance kind of drivers? What am I going to do to either make this mission successful or to be the limiting factor? And then I see myself as highly capable and competent. I visualize myself going through my aspects of the performance, moments in the overall mission, and I practice that relentlessly.
Yeah.
For as long as for days and days up to the mission, if I have that much time, and if not, then I certainly practice what we call the SOPs in my mind, right? Those are the standard operating procedures over and over and over. And then there's the group or the teams kind of coming together and operating in a state of flow and dynamism, and being able to get shit done when shit goes wrong. And so we practice that by visualizing, and the SEALs do it when it comes as a mission. It's not necessarily everyone sitting there closing their eyes and visualizing, although I think some leaders are starting to do that. The way I saw it done, and it still was effective, was through the imagery and the videos. So, and also the rehearsals, which are all part of this. Right? So you're showing, everyone's visualizing the same thing as the commander. It's like a guided visualization, but everyone's got their eyes open, and it's being supported with imagery that looks really close to what you're going to see. Imagery of the target, imagery of similar missions, or the closest rehearsal that you did. And so everyone's seeing again how the different teams are interacting, and the different milestones and the potential obstacles, and they're visualizing what to do when things go wrong, and they're visualizing with an expectation that they'll dominate whether things go wrong or not.
Yep.
And so when you have everyone on the team, all the parties practicing the same image, there's some power to that. Right now, I've studied meditation for many years now, and I know that when people come together and visualize the same thing, like it starts to create some energy, right? There's a ripple effect in that. If one person visualizes something, great. You got to do it a lot with a lot of intensity to really move the world. But if you bring 50 or 100 people together, right, in the same room over a period of time, and you're visualizing the same thing with it and expecting to accomplish or to dominate that thing, wow, that's powerful.
Man,
that is powerful.
I just got goosebumps because you put me back into that state of when we were doing that. Yeah. And just like you said, no one taught us this, right? I mean, I learned this post my Blue Angel career. And I can't wait to get into what we're going to talk about, what you're doing now, right? And transferring this information to others. But you're absolutely right. I'm thinking back to being in that briefing room, and we did the exact same thing. Actually, very few guys closed their eyes. We had the same imagery. Back then, though, by the way, it was done with satellites, and actually we used to have these TARPs airplanes that go over and would shoot the target and get us back, and we were on paper. Right. Now, of course, they're working digitally, like to a whole different degree. But we were actually plotting out our checkpoints, 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile checkpoints. So as the boss was actually given the commands in the same cadence, by the way, the exact same cadence that was going to be used during the evolution. I was visualizing, what does my 3 mile checkpoint look like? But it wasn't just what's the White House. It was, no, what's the northeast corner of the 3-story White House, the upper window, green shade, boom, level of detail. Where's my other teammates? And I found, though, what you just mentioned is so critical, is there was a power in that room that you could feel. It was, and that, I think, allowed us to operate at such a synchronized way, airborne, and still also adapt when things changed. Over to you on that feeling in the room.
Well, this is getting into like quantum physics, but the mind is the creator of our physical universe from a quantum physics level. And so when minds come together and are sharing passionately sharing a desired outcome in life, right? So for you, as a Blue Angel mission, for me, it was a Navy SEAL mission. Now it's something else for both of us.
Yes.
then you're changing the underlying matrix, so to speak, or the underlying structure of things, because again, the mind is going to create what's happening outside. So we're going to create our experience individually through our thoughts, and then collectively we're going to create and shape the experience. So this is a way for the SEALs and for us as leaders is to what we call shape our battlefield. Now, normally that's used in the context of saying, okay, we're going to go soften up the targets by bombing them, and we're going to gather the intel on the enemy, and we're going to do all these things to shape the battlefield. But I think it's equally as important to shape the battlefield through the combined energy and imagery, the mind power of the team, right? So whoever's got the stronger mind power combined with the stronger tech and tactics is going to win, right? But imagine, even at a larger level, like if we went to war with China or something like that, if we're not all clear upon what victory is as a military, and people aren't sharing the same, if everyone's off just doing their own thing, it'd be a disaster, as you know, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have a shared mindset, and that leads to not linear improvements in success or chances of success, but astronomically geometric chances of success, I think. At least that's my experience.
It's amazing. Let's take the conversation beyond the SEALs and the Blue Angels and beyond the military to what we're doing now in the world, because I think you just tapped into something so powerful. And that is, how can we use these tools that we've learned and are constantly learning to make a better world, right? To use this I'm in Sedona, Arizona today. I just finished a
Nice.
2-week course with one of my great teachers, a guy named Michael Roach. And we're talking about the same.
Nice.
Yeah, you know Michael, right? How do you know?
I don't know Michael. I want to know Michael. I want to do a podcast with him. But I know he's a well-known Buddhist teacher.
Well, philosophy too. And here's what he's doing is he's taking that Eastern wisdom and unpacking it in a Western world. And we're just talking about this concept that the world is coming from us, not at us. So, the way the quantum works and making that into how you can shape your reality, how you can shape the outcome. And what was really interesting and where I want to go with this is, let's talk a little bit about your mindset, the 5 mountains, or some of the things that you actually live your life by, and how you created those from your prior experience. So
that's a great question. And for those of your listeners who don't know about my background, which I'm just going to assume nobody does.
Right.
So my kind of life and what I teach now is really an intersection of some really powerful influences in my life. One is actually Zen meditation. And I started training Zen when I was 21 through a grandmaster martial artist who also was a Zen master. And it transformed me. It changed my life. And I tell the story in my book, The Way of the SEAL, that the reason I went into the SEALs was because of Zen meditation, because I was on a path to be a business guy. I was I was getting my MBA, and I was a certified public accountant, and I had this family business to go back and run. And the Zen meditation just cracked me wide open and showed me a different path that led me into the SEALs. So then the SEALs were the second powerful influence. And, so that combination of that Zen kind of mind, beginner's mind, understanding how to use breathing and concentration tools to really tap into my inner potential, combined with the Navy SEALs kick-assery of getting shit done and making big things happen with a team, I might add, with a team.
Yes.
Right there, I had a really powerful combination, but it wasn't enough, because what I found is over the course of the years, no matter how freaking strong I was and smart I was and able to concentrate I was the biggest source of my own limitations to my success. And it had to do with the fuck ups and the trauma and the emotional shadow. And so the third huge influence for me has been therapy. Right? Deep therapy, which I tried to find through meditation. And to be honest, Buddhist psychology and yoga psychology will get you there, but there's not many people who really understand how to help at the emotional level with those, and especially in America. So the combination of meditation with therapy is a 1-2 punch that is extraordinarily effective and almost, I think, essential. because, here I had one of my meditation teachers, Gary Kraskow, Vinny Yoga, and Vinny Yoga does actually do therapy. In fact, it's called yoga therapy. And he said, you know what? If you're an asshole and you meditate for 20 years, you're likely just to be a more focused asshole.
Exactly.
Right. So developmental psychology, depth therapy, EMDR, all these things. I've been relentless. And it all started because I married a therapist when I left SEAL training. Or no, when I left Buds, I moved next door to my future wife, and then I married her 3 years later. And she's a therapist. So the first time I invited her to McPee's down in Coronado, the SEAL bar, and she said no. And I couldn't understand why she didn't want to go to McPee's with me. She goes, we need to talk. Well, we need to talk. Or I told her I had a perfect family, and she went home and saw the absolute chaos and dysfunction of my family. She goes, we need to talk even more, So that helped me out. So that's the third. And then the fourth is really understanding, like having a model, a framework for understanding the universe that tied everything together for me, like a meta model that helped me really, really understand what is really going on here. And I don't mean, yes, mind, body, spirit. Yes, I understand that I'm a spiritual being having a physical existence. I understand, I believe in the Eastern principles of karma, and I'm in this, having this physical incarnation to learn and grow, certain lessons, and also to serve in a certain way that's going to help me evolve. All that, yes, but it wasn't until I stumbled upon Ken Wilber's integral theory that I had this huge light bulb going off. And I was getting my PhD in leadership at the University of San Diego, and that's when I first came across. Actually, I came across his work much earlier, but I was really empowered to dive into it there. And so these four influences have really come together for me, and it's kind of how I live my life. It's how I make meaning and find perspective, and now it's turned into how I coach, and we call that coaching Unbeatable Mind. The leadership and team development business that I have is called Unbeatable Mind, and we call that the Unbeatable Mind operating system, which is the confluence of these four things. Now, I don't want to turn this into a teaching moment, but I'll just tell you that the four aspects of reality that we work on is our individual interior, which is the subjective sense of self. And that's where all your potential lies. So when you're doing visualization, you're working on the individual interior. But then there's this collective interior that we'll call the team's energy or the culture of the team. And that also is where the team's potential lies. And so when you visualize as a team, you're tapping into that we sphere, or that team's potential, which is a combination of your individual potential merged with the potential of everything else, which I said is much greater than 1 + 1 = 3 or 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 10. Then there's the exterior. So that's all interior. It goes on underneath my skin. The exterior is your habits, behaviors, and actions, both as an individual. So this is the realm of performance. How do I peak my performance? Eating well, sleeping well, recovering, hydration, de-stressing, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I like to have a number of practices that really balance us and bring us into optimal performance, habits, and actions. And then there's the team's performance, which is the exterior of the team. And this looks like how you organize for success. It could be the org structure, like a team structure in the military going to do a mission, which is coming together temporarily, or it could be a more permanent structure like your business, my business. And the mission and the flow of how you get shit done, right? So like the SEALs, this is where SEALs came in that fourth one. Like they knew how to get shit done at a big level. And so we call that front sight focus, and really being clear about your mission and having a mission plan, and then knocking those goals down into small chunks. We call micro goals, that type of stuff. That's the exterior of the team. So that model, what we call the Unbeatable Mind operating system, has those four quadrants: interior I, the exterior I, the interior we, and the exterior we. So then I look at it and say, okay, what's really happening here? I gotta operate it. All four are rising simultaneously in different domains in my life. So I want to make sure that I'm clear about who I am and what I'm doing at any particular moment and why, and also to be able to operate at my peak. In other words, to show up in a big way. In order to do that, I need to train myself. So this is getting down to the core philosophy of my life. I need to train myself relentlessly, because if I'm not training myself, somebody else is. The world is, the culture is, the media is, the news cycle is, my parents are, or, I never undid the training that they brought. And so, of course, all warriors like you and I get this, but it's a relatively new concept for other people to think, well, I got to train myself at all levels: physical, mental, emotional, intuitional, and spiritual. And we call those the 5 mountains. And what I've also learned is that when you train those aspects of your being, what I call the 5 mountains, or different intelligences together and simultaneously, day in and day out, then all of a sudden 2 things happen. One is your growth accelerates, right? You just have one breakthrough after another, after another, after another, and then it just starts to speed up from there. And 2 is you have kind of a coming together of those aspects into a oneness, into a unified whole, which, as you know, like the term yoga means wholeness or integration, right? Zen, same thing. I mean, the whole point of those spiritual traditions was to find wholeness. The idea being that we enter this world as a separated, fragmented aspect of our true nature, which is our spirit. And, our growth process is to help us reintegrate and find that wholeness again, and then to live from that wholeness. Well, if we train ourselves physically and mentally and emotionally and intuitionally and spiritually, then all that comes together really quickly. And what we've learned is that there's really specific and unique ways you can train each of those 5 mountains. And so we do that through daily rituals and through team training and through, basically what we call a 5 mountain training plan. There's more to it, but I've already thrown a whole bunch at you.
No, I love it. This is perfect for our audience. It's interesting. I always knew we were connected at a deeper level, but I didn't know why. And in the last 2 podcasts, yours and this one we're doing right now, we're starting to really personally, I'm going, wow, we're on the same path. We're on the same path with a lot of the same goals and mission to do. And I find that inner growth, is where I'm spending a lot of my time, working on myself first, both in all those 5 mountains that you talked about. And then of course, sharing that with a way to help others. Right. And I think that kind of key. So I got a bunch of questions, but one is I wanted to go back to, you talked about therapy being important. First off, thanks for being open and honest to even talk about that. And I think a lot of people can benefit from the idea of, well, what kind of therapy are you talking about? What was it that you were trying to overcome, and how did you do it?
Well, let me first state it's going to be different for everybody. And it's really important to have an effective, I call an emotional coach, because a lot of people are turned off by therapy, or even the term meditation sometimes scares people. So,
right.
I like to make these things to take the mystery out of them. Having an emotional coach is simply someone who's skilled at helping you take the things that have emotionally challenged us, cause you to shut down, go into denial, project anger, rage, guilt, or shame onto the world, or suppress it within yourself. And then these things show up as all sorts of problematic behavior, right? Addictions, obviously, as being a big one, or abuse and whatnot. And what I grew up with was my dad's anger from his childhood wounds, which he now he would express that outwardly, right, with the belt and with his vitriol, right, and his rage, both toward me and my brother, as well as my mom. And so that created of course we want to gloss it over, but, I internalized a lot of that, and it kind of shut me down a little bit. And so that when in my all through my teens and early 20s, I was really emotionally unavailable. I really feel sorry for women who were, the women who I tried to have relationships with, because it would last about 3 months. And, I say about 30 words in those 3 months, or I'd say, foolish things, because I just I didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
And so when you lack that confidence, sometimes you overcompensate, and, it comes off as arrogance. And so I definitely had some arrogance, and everyone has some version of this, right? So I know I'm not alone. That's why I'm comfortable talking about this. Everyone has some. I'm a badass Navy SEAL, and I'm a hugely successful business guy and author. You can have great success and still have this shit. This is a lifetime process of working on it. It's like peeling an onion. You just keep peeling and peeling and peeling. So for me, first, like I mentioned, I started this work because my wife kind of demanded of me. So that's a beautiful thing to have a partner who's like, here, look at this. Here's a mirror. This is what I see. And you're like, at first you're like, no, you're kind of in denial about it. Cause we're inside our own bottles. We can't read the labels of our emotional life very well. So that's where an emotional coach comes in. They can pull that stuff out and show you like a mirror, the outside of your bottle.
Yeah.
And like, this is the behavior, and this is kind of why it's not working for me, or this is how it's probably why it's not working for you either, in maybe these other areas. So the point there is to have someone who can help you parse out what's not working and to help you understand why, and then to objectify it, meaning you depersonalize it and you start to recognize, oh, that's something that happened to me. It's not who I am.
Right.
It's something that happened to me. Now, because that happened to me, because I was most, if not all of this stuff that we have to deal with and unpack, John, happens in the first 14 years of our lives. And there's a smaller amount that can happen in the next 7, so the first 21 years, even the Buddhist psychology tradition says, the 3 7-year periods, 0 to 7, 7 to 14, and 14 to 21. 0 to 7 is the most important. That's where most like serious childhood wounds and trauma come in, because your brain is unformed and your emotional life is unformed. And, boy, if trauma happens, which it does with everyone in those first 7 years, it's really difficult to unpack, because it's just such a deep part of you and you don't have the skills to deal with it. And so that's where you get repression, and you get these big gaps, right? And so the undifferentiated ego compensates, right, to try to protect itself. And then you get what they call shadow. It's an aspect of yourself which is just kind of hidden from yourself, but it comes out in all different ways. It leaks out, right? It leaks out is how you judge people. It leaks out in your biases. It leaks out in your reactionary behavior. And there's patterns to that. And so a good therapist coach can help you see those patterns and then parse those things out and then point to their originating causes and then help you decouple or detach from the emotional energy, and then to create new emotional patterns around that, new emotional energy around that. They will do this through a number of different tools. One is kind of talk therapy, which is not, in my opinion, is just like open the door and just get comfortable. But if you're still doing talk therapy after a few months, then you would question that therapist, because really that's just about starting to do the first layer, which is what's working and what's not working. Looking for the patterns.
Yeah,
because
that's a good debrief. Yeah.
Yeah. If all you do is talk about the patterns, you're not healing them. In fact, you could be making them worse. So that's part one. Then part two is really kind of the regression, where you go back with skillful means, and it can be hypnotherapy. It can be something like EMDR, or eye movement dissociative reprocessing, which is what I do. I've done both, and they're both extremely effective. And this is where imagery comes in. So we have a process we call recapitulation, where we use imagery, like we were talking about, powerful imagery looking into the future. We now use it looking into the past. And we find those moments that we were traumatized, and we de-energize them. And we then re-energize them with positive energy of learning, of forgiveness, of insight, of understanding, why this happened. Because all these experiences, we tend to, and this is something that your teacher, Michael Roach, would say, is we tend to make them about the other person, like we were the victim.
Yeah.
And it's not to say
coming
that
from us.
Yeah, this didn't happen to us, but we, if you really want to go into the spiritual angle here, we chose these experiences. And we came into this life to have those experiences. And a lot of people say, I don't believe that, because why would a baby choose to be abused? It's hard to understand, and not everyone will agree with me, but I believe that, in our non-physical form before we were born, we chose our parents so that we can have certain experiences. And those experiences are necessary for us to grow as a spirit and to reintegrate, right? To move back toward, more light, more love, back toward God, so to speak.
Yeah.
So therapy is really powerful because it helps us overcome the underlying causes that choice, the underlying, what's the word, ways of being and behavior that resulted from that spiritual
cause and
choice.
effect, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
that,
like, right. So then we get back,
seeds.
right. Then we can unlock that, learn the final lesson, get the graduation certificate, and move on to the next lesson or the next level, like a video game, you know? Therapy is incredibly important, right? It's the Western world's great gift to the world, whereas the Eastern world's great gift to the world is meditation.
Yeah.
The Western world is therapy, and the two together are like hand in glove. They need to be used together, in my opinion.
Thank you for sharing that. I mean, most people wouldn't go that deep, right? Most people wouldn't feel comfortable sharing what you just talked about. And yet we all struggle with that, right? In fact, we were just talking about this with Michael Roach, and I were talking about, he likes to use an example called the two husbands in the room, or the two wives in the room. And you know, it's so easy to say, oh, that problem is someone else's problem. It's them, you know, and that's actually the not the correct way to view it, right? Where we're actually projecting on them. When in reality, there's a seed that starts, and that seed splits into two different possibilities. One is the one that you're observing, and one is the one you caused, right? And so when you think about that, it makes me, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's usually in personal relationships, you can look back at yourself and go, okay, wait a minute. You know, what was my portion there? Did I do something that actually created that anger later? And to just work on yourself first. So I think that's so huge.
In fact, just work on yourself, period.
There you go. There you go. That's actually, thank you for that. That's probably,
just work on yourself, period. You want to change the world, change yourself. Right. And so that's my goal. Like for Unbeatable Minds, 100 million people who are changing themselves to be more positive, to be more whole, to be happy, to be content, and to do things that are not harmful to the environment and to other human beings. And can you imagine that? And then 1 billion people, you know, to making decisions every day is like, how is this decision going to land with the environment, with the people in this room, with other people that I'm intimately connected to, which is everybody, right? Because again, we have this physical cause and effect linear experience of life, but then there's this non-physical, totally connected, unified whole experience of life that, you know, our thoughts affect everything. Our choices affect everything. And so there's a reason that this world is so effed up, and, you know, the planet's going through its struggles, and, you know, we have countries standing off against each other with nuclear weapons. It's because the way people have been thinking for the past few hundred years or longer, in that they've been thinking in separation. They've been thinking in fear. They've been thinking in destructive and attack mode. And until we can get everybody thinking differently, thinking that, you know, our fellow humans and all beings have worth and need to be revered, and that the environment needs to be revered, and that we're stewards of the environment. We're not meant to like strip it of all its resources. I made this comment the other day, you know, I do like watching TV once in a while. And when it gets violent, I'm just like, I know this isn't real, and I'm not going to take any of this in my body, but I'm watching this pirate show, which you would love, because, you know, Navy SEALs are pirates at their heart. It's called, it's called Black Sails. And, you know, there's people getting their limbs chopped off and everything. And I said, you know, for us as human beings to destroy the environment is kind of like us chopping our leg off for dinner, right? You could probably eat it, but that's not very sustainable for very long, is it? Right? Exactly. Well, think about that. For us, you know, to think that we can just rape the earth and continue to live here as a human being, as a species, is the same mentality as chopping your leg off for dinner, you know? I know it's kind of brutal, but isn't it funny? I don't know why that came. I tie it to the pirate show. I'm a pirate at heart. In a prior life, I must have been a pirate.
Well, like you said, that ethos of the Navy SEALs fits into the pirate mentality, right?
Sure does.
What I think what's interesting, what we just talked about, I didn't plan the conversation to go this direction, but it must be interesting for people to say, wait a minute, here's this badass Navy SEAL, maybe a badass Blue Angel pilot. And, yeah, we had those lives, but what we're talking about is something that's much deeper, much more meaningful. This oneness, I envision someday where there's no more borders, let alone states, no more borders. Why would we need that? Why can't we really come together as oneness? And I think that we're actually starting to. I think there's a lot of the things that are happening in the world. But I love that your analogy there about, don't cut off your leg for the short term. What's the long term? And we're all going to do that. Hey, let's go back to something real quick, because there's a couple of thoughts I had here that are really powerful. Your transition in life. Okay. I was thinking about your transition from being a Navy SEAL to all the things you're doing now, the business world. Give me some of the key. Mine happened in 1999, was the 97. My transition went through when I went to Stanford and then got into venture capital. And I realized there's a whole nother world out there. What was your transition from a Navy SEAL to what you're doing now?
Well, I, half of my SEAL career was as an active duty guy, and the other half was reserve. So I didn't do a 20-year active or more like you did probably. So I got off active duty around 1997 as well.
Interesting.
But I stayed in the reserves. So, before I went into SEALs, as I mentioned, I was an MBA and I was working as a CPA on Wall Street. And then I was, literally probably going to stay there and then eventually go back to the family business. And the whole process that I described, taught me that I was meant to be a warrior and I was meant to serve as a SEAL. Now, the reason I didn't stay on active duty in the SEALs is because when I got married to that awesome therapist, as you're well aware, it was an eye opener for her. And I vaguely knew what it'd be like. I knew that I was going to be gone 11 months out of the year. I just didn't understand the emotional toll it would take on both of us.
Right.
And so you've heard that term. If the Navy wanted you to have a wife, they'd issue you one.
Yeah, exactly.
So like a lot of special operators and pilots, I was facing a choice. Now my wife will say, no, she would have stayed with me had we stayed had I stayed in the Navy and gone to DevGru or whatever, which is the path I was on. But I didn't have that kind of confidence that would be true.
What do people, DevGru? I know you and I know what that means. What does that mean to the outside?
That's the tier 1 SEAL Team 6. And not all SEALs are tier 1s. You've got to kind of build up to get there and get selected and go through another training program. It's kind of like the Blue Angels of the SEALs.
Yep. There you go.
So the other thing about this was I have this belief that you really can't grow beyond the level of the institutions that you kind of lock yourself into. And though I love the SEALs and the operating mentality and the mindset and the guys and the mission, the military is a very bureaucratic, rigid, institutionalized organization. And because of my meditation and my therapy, I was growing very, very fast. Yeah. And I literally would go to work and be like, I don't feel like I belong here anymore. I'm not uniform anymore. Right. And yet I have to put this uniform on. I can only say I have to speak a certain way and I have to be a certain way with people that I don't respect or I don't, I think even shouldn't even be in the organization. And I know exactly what everyone else earns and I can't earn any more than that. And I was like, there was all these things where I was just like, I don't feel like I can grow in this organization anymore. So those two things led me to get out. Now, this is a cool story because it happened so fast. It's not like I sat back down on my meditation bench and spent 9 months trying to visualize my future and figure out what's next. I literally was like, I know I don't want to go back to the family business. I know I don't want to go into corporate America. I don't want to go back into finance. So what the hell am I going to do? Well, Navy SEALs are very entrepreneurial, and this is 96. And, and I was like, I think I'll start my own business because I can do anything because I'm a Navy SEAL. So I started a microbrewery. Coronado Brewing Company, right?
Coronado, right?
Coronado Brewing Company, yeah. And really the driver was just to do anything but those other things, to start a business and also to get free beer for life. And so one of my biggest lessons there was those aren't great drivers, to start a business. You got to have a little bit more of a why behind it, than just free beer. So I made some big mistakes, mainly around the choice of partners. And I found out how hard it was to actually build and lead a team in the civilian world when you didn't have the homogeneity of the pipeline training and the type of people who, I worked with in the SEAL teams. And then,
well, tell me more about that. Okay. What do you mean? Why was it hard? What was different?
Well, in the SEALs, leadership is almost like a done for you kit, right? You've got people who absolutely want to be there. They're radically qualified to be there. They're trained to be there over 3, 4, 5 years. They know the mission. They're relentlessly trying to improve their personal and team skills every day. And then when they come together, they really care about the team and they care about the mission, and we share the vision and we go out and we kick ass and take names. It's hard to fuck that up, right? It really is.
It's fun too, by the way, right?
It's a lot of fun. When I started the brewing company, I literally was looking, when I wrote the first business plan, I was like, there's a blank piece of paper here. What's this going to be? Right.
Yeah.
And start pecking away with my typewriter. And I didn't put any thought into the type of people that I needed to be on the team, and whether I could train them and how I would assess them, and what their visions, whether their vision was in alignment with mine, whether the values are even in alignment with mine. Now, you might think that most organizations have this squared away, but I don't think they do. Not many of my clients do.
Right.
And so I was like a living example of that. And so I just dove in feet first, and my partners were they were my brothers-in-law. So they were my wife's brothers. B, they were uneducated. C, they weren't unintelligent, but they were intelligent in the kind of the crafty, manipulative, deceitful way. I didn't know that because they don't wear it on their sleeve because they're both very polished, good looking Southern California guys. And they didn't share my vision for the business. They said they did, but that's kind of where the deceit came in. They didn't, we didn't talk about it enough. We didn't have whiteboard sessions. We didn't have facilitator coming in and talk about this stuff. So, and then also they didn't put skin in the game. Like you and I know that if your teammates, we had a saying in the SEALs, earn your trident every day.
Yep.
But just because you got it in training, like your wings, if you just stop doing the work and you just resting on your laurels from yesterday's accomplishment, guess what they do? They take that trident away from you. So I didn't know. I just didn't think of all that stuff. And so I get into this business, and, these two guys are supposed to, we're supposed to basically carry equal load, Actually, it first started with just one of them. And this is my codependence, my shadow, where my shadow came in. It's like, I was really codependent. I had trouble saying no and confronting people. But so I'm just partnered with one of these guys. So I got 50-50. Then we're starting raising money. So I'm getting diluted a little bit, but still maybe I'm down to like 40% of the company. Well, then this guy says, oh, I want to bring my brother in. And instead of saying, what's he going to bring to the table? How much is he going to invest? Why do we need to do that? I just said, sure. And so here comes this, now I'm diluted down to 28% or something like that. And mind you, John, I'm doing all the work. Like I wrote 2 or 3 business plans. I raised $1.5 million. I quit my job. That was the SEALs. I was on unemployment, and I got that business launched almost single-handedly and got it profitable within a year in 96 into 97.
Yeah.
And what these guys did, both of them were supposed to leave their jobs to come work. They didn't. Both of them were supposed to put put equal amount of money into the business, and they didn't put a dime in. I liquidated my 401k and put everything I had in it, and they reneged on that. So they didn't put any money into it. And then they would come in at beer 30 and give away a few $100s worth of beer and food to their buddies. And there was a point in time where I just let it go for a while. And then finally I said, this sucks. I got a problem. And then I confronted the board with it. They were shocked to hear about it, but, understood it. So they fired them from their positions. They had salaries and positions. They weren't doing much, but we didn't do anything to strip them of their equity, because that would have been hard. But now they became disgruntled minority shareholders in the state of California.
Wow.
A lot of attorneys and a lot of, rules around that. And so that led to 3 years of legal battles and shareholder proxy battles. And I won every proxy battle. I always maintained control of the business, but it just destroyed the family. My mom's parents got divorced. these guys just literally, they called it the scorched earth policy. They were going to do whatever they could to destroy me, destroy my reputation. They tried to claim that I had stolen from the business to tarnish my reputation with the shareholders. There was obviously didn't happen. There was no evidence of it, but you know how those things get, right? It just got really ugly. And they had an attorney who was just a total shark, who actually ended up apologizing to my wife's father many years later, said it was just wrong what happened.
Wow.
But anyways, I had to go back and put my Navy SEAL goggles on. I was like, I'm going to take these guys down. And I started to, and their response was to just take it to the family level. And they were just torturing my wife, trying to get her to divorce me. They tortured her father, who was a former Marine, who was supportive of me, to the point where the mother divorced him. Literally, I kid you not.
Wow.
And then the mother wouldn't talk to me or Sandy. And it just got so ugly that my wife just begged me, not just walk away, but to run away.
Right.
So I orchestrated a buyout for them to buy me out. And they ended up with a $50 million business that they didn't put a penny into. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
And I was happy to walk away. I walked away with a little bit of upside on my initial investment. And I got any of the investors, like my family and some of my SEAL friends who wanted to get out, got out with a little bit of upside. But I look back and I'm like, it was one of those lessons that was like a big wow, holy crap, that really happened. And whoa, did I learn some important lessons. I'm so grateful for it.
What were the lessons? Give me the just quick executive summary.
Top ones. Well, in the business, it's all about people, right? You can have the best strategy, you can have the best beer in the world, and it's all about the people you work with, sharing vision, sharing passion, sharing alignment. And if you don't have those things, it will fall apart. It's going to be really hard. Yeah. So I learned that, I was like, wow, that was better than an MBA right there. Secondly, and I alluded to this, right? When it comes to leadership, it really is us who gets in our own way. In fact, my book that I put out last year is called Staring Down the Wolf. And it's about staring down the wolf of fear, the wolf of fear being your fear, your biases, your discomfort with, for me, like not having that conversation with my brother-in-law, Rick's like, why would I want to have your brother, Ron, come into this business? Like, what's he going to contribute? Like, why is it good for me? It was my fear of confrontation and my codependence that didn't allow that conversation to happen. So I was my own biggest enemy. So that was the second lesson, is like, wow, in order to really succeed in life and as a leader, you got to do that emotional work. You got to unwind, those reactionaries or the things that hold you back, the mental ruts and biases. Now we're seeing this being played out, with this whole racial issue and equity issue, and everyone's like freaking out about it. But it's only because, people haven't developed the capacity to really slow down and to look at how they behave and what it's meant to literally have thousands of years of a patriarchal society. And what does that feel like for a woman? Or what does it feel like, for a person of color to be in a society, where, slavery existed less than 100 years ago. Well, over 100 years ago, but you know what I'm saying, 150 years ago.
Yeah.
And so if you're, guys who look like us and we don't think about those things, then we're not able to take their perspective. And so the emotional and the shadow work as a leader is so important, so that you can actually get out of your own biases and reactionary patterns and open up your mind and heart to be able to see more and to be more inclusive. And then that leads to great reverence, like I said, for all life, all doesn't matter, sex or race or gender, issues, doesn't matter. Everyone is respected equally. And so that's a much more effective approach of dealing with the issues at the individual, like awareness level, than fighting against something, which, as you know, force on force leads to, suboptimal results. It makes things worse.
Yeah.
I know I went off on a little tangent there, a little social studies class, but
I love it. I can tell where your mind's at. You're definitely at the higher level, trying to bring the oneness, trying to bring things together. I thought about Mother Teresa said, I won't march against something I'm against, but I'll march for something I'm for. She said something like that. It wasn't exactly It wasn't exactly like perfect. Hey, I want to do this. You mentioned the I and the we, and that you teach that through your Unbeatable Mind course, which I think is so powerful, right? If I ask you the question, who am I? In fact, I want to ask you the question, who am I? How would you answer that?
In fact, that's a great question, because that's one of the perennial spiritual questions that
Yes.
Ramana Maharshi, built his whole practice on. And so I've asked that question a lot to myself and followed that thread. And so the who am I that I'd like to answer is that I am a consciousness. I am a soul that's eternal and vast, and an aspect of the divine, or the Godhead, not Mark divine, but the divine. That is.
It's funny, those two names are the same, by the way. That's pretty cool.
There's a big capital D divine, and then there's Mark divine. Yeah, and I'm having this current incarnation, this projected physical life, so that I can, work out some karmic issues around my warrior aspect, my warrior archetype. And I've had some insights over the years through my meditation and other, training that I've done, that I've been a warrior for many lifetimes. And this is a lifetime for me to lay down the sword and to pick up the pen and be a teacher, and to heal some of the trauma, unresolved trauma from being a warrior, right? Because there's a lot of trauma that goes with that, to get killed and to kill others, right? It's an issue that a lot of warriors who are military warriors need to learn how to deal with. And so I had to learn how to deal with that and help others deal with that. So that's who I am, right? I'm not the MBA, CPA, Navy SEAL. I don't care about any of the accomplishments or the money in my bank. It's just fun. That's just stuff to do, It's not who I am.
I found a word, and I think it's good for everybody here. When you say I am, whatever you put after that, I think is very powerful, right? Yeah. And it can change as the days go by, it modifies. But the one that I found that still sticks with me, and people maybe who follow this podcast have heard me say this before, is that I am an angel. And I picked that word angel, not because I was a blue angel. It's just ironic that happened to be there. It's because I was doing some research about angels, and it said an angel has 5 qualities. An angel's a messenger, an angel gives guidance, an angel protects, an angel's a warrior, and above all else, an angel serves others. I said, you know what? I'm not really sure if they are, but that's it. I'm in, right? Those are my core values. I'm in. And that motivates me every time I think about it. I'm so interested in other people's, I am statements. They're
what else I am?
Go for it.
Glad to be here.
There you go. I know. See, there you go. It gets so powerful and so simple. What does glad to be here mean to you right now?
Well, I think it speaks to, contentment. This is an idea. Yeah. Most of the people that I know are not content, right? And it's a symptom of our Western society, our bias toward action and constant doing, and always like looking over there and say, wow, I should have that, right? I don't have enough. I should have that. I should have more money. I should have a bigger house. I should have this. And so we're never content to be just who we are right now. So glad to be here means like, I am actually glad to be here in this moment, in this skin, in this place. If it all went away tomorrow, so be it. I'm glad to be here, right? And I think that it lines up with my kind of one of my warrior ethos is I call it one day, one lifetime. This came from a Zen lecture that my Zen master Nakamura gave us one night, and he's writing it out on a chalkboard with his Japanese kanji characters, and he gives a lecture and he says, one day, one lifetime. Every day is an opportunity to have a lifetime of learning. Like the Buddha said, you can find enlightenment in a single breath if you pay close enough attention. Well, you can find enlightenment in a single day if you pay close enough attention. You can grow a lifetime in a single day if you pay close enough attention. But if you're focusing on tomorrow, today, you're screwed. Or like the Navy SEALs said, the only easy day was yesterday. Why'd they say that? Because yesterday is gone. Now's the time to show up and do the work. Yesterday's easy. It's gone. It's just a memory. So I'm glad to be here means to be content with where you are while you're still working toward your missions and your targets and your goals. that's just fun, right? It's just part of, the trajectory of our lives. But frankly, just be content with today and do the best you can today, because it might be our last. You never know.
I love,
In
I
this
love,
lifetime, that is.
yeah. I love your essence on how you unpacked it. I think what's powerful is glad to be here actually means different things to different people at any moment, right? But it is that appreciation and that presence. I also like what you said, and that is at the same time striving for something, and which I don't think is a bad thing, as
No,
long as
I
you're
don't
not
either.
attached to the outcome, right?
That's right.
But the idea of wanting to make a difference in the world, you do a couple of things that are amazing. I want everybody to know that. Talk about your foundation real quick, because we talked about the idea of being a warrior, and you raise money. What is the foundation, and why did you pick it?
Well, we started it with the Courage Foundation a few years ago. Um, I wanted to help veterans and my brothers who were suffering, and most people, when they hear that on average 22 vets a day, and I don't know how relevant that stat is still, but I think it's pretty relevant. 22 vets a day are committing suicide. Like, it really hurt my soul that was the case. And I know suicide is a big issue for many population, not just veteran population, but it's really like, wow, what if these people had a mentor or a coach or someone to just show them a better way, to get them out of their dark night of the soul moment here, and to guide them on a path to wholeness. And I was thinking, well, that's exactly what I'm doing with Unbeatable Mind. I'm taking people from good to great. Why can't I use this to take people from darkness to more light and to help them heal? And I wanted to do that for vets. So that's what the Courage Foundation was all about. And we're helping vets by putting them through a version of what we do with our corporate clients, a 3-day immersive training of all the skills. So we're teaching them to box breathe and, meditate and to visualize. But it's done as a team, and the power of a team, for both, developing excellence and performance, but also for healing. It works just as well. So we put them in a team, and the team has a military trained coach who's trained in our philosophy. And we work with them for a year-long program. We call it the VIP program, Veteran Integration Program.
Nice.
It's really powerful. Our biggest challenge is raising money. I mean, there's 40,000 veteran organizations out there.
Yeah.
And also the other thing is I want this, my overall objective is to have this extend beyond the vet community, and also to bring the healed vets who are healed or healing into service projects with other populations. So we're looking at expanding that to, other like teens, helping teens, how the teens, just really crushed by COVID. And our society is so fast and so fragmented and so, hard for teens to find their grounding and to have a clear vision of a future for themselves and whatnot. So I want to start to work with teens. So that's Courage Foundation. It would be funny, like, when I kicked it off, I was like, how am I going to raise money for this thing? And of course, being a warrior, I was like, well, we could do something hard and fun that's inspiring. So I challenged our tribe, I say tribe, people who follow what I do with Unbeatable Mind or my other company, SEALFIT. I challenged them to do 22 million burpees and to raise $250,000. And we did it. It took us 2.5 years. 2.5 years.
Nice.
We did 22 million burpees, and we raised about $400,000 for the Courage Foundation. We broke 2 world records in the process. It was just an intense period. Really funny that we would do that. But I don't want to do many burpees anymore after that. I was done.
I bet. I was part of that program.
Oh, you were
part of your trainings. I actually didn't do the burpee challenge, but I did some of your other challenges. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing and the purpose. 2 quick questions. One is box breathing. Give us a very quick, what is that and why is it powerful?
I think box breathing is like our starting point. When someone could say, where do I start with Unbeatable Mind? Say, start with box breathing. Box breathing is simply getting control of your breathing. You're breathing through your nostrils. You're getting a full lung capacity. You're holding your breath after the inhale and the exhale, and you're doing it in an even pattern. So 4 count in, hold, 4 count, exhale, hold, 4 count. That's why I called it a box. This breathing pattern does a lot of really powerful things. First, it first you're taking conscious control of your breathing, which means then you begin to recognize dysfunctional breathing patterns. You begin to develop the muscles of your breathing. You begin to use your lungs fully, which means you're getting much more oxygen, much more energy, and you're detoxifying. And just that alone has enormous health benefits. Two, you're massaging your vagus nerve and triggering the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest function. Every time you do this practice, which is meant to be a daily practice for 5 or up to 20 minutes, I recommend 20 every morning. And so you're slowly bleeding off all the stress that has been building up in you over the years, because we live in this super hyper stimulated, stressful society, which is always triggering your sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight.
Yep.
So it brings you back into balance, makes you more calm. 3, it does the same thing with your brain. If it's bringing your body into calmness, it's bringing your brain into calmness, which is helping to create more resonance in your frequencies, alpha, beta, theta, etc. And it allows you to get into that high alpha, low beta state almost intentionally after, a long period of practice. And that state is experienced with deep concentration, creativity, and flow. So that's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
And then 4, the breath is really the link or the bridge between the body or the external and the mind and the spirit. Every time you're breathing in life force. You're breathing in consciousness. So by taking conscious control of your breathing and focusing on it, paying attention, now you're beginning to establish an internal practice that is very non-threatening. It feels very good. It's got obvious physical and mental benefits, but it's a Trojan horse because now you essentially are meditating. So if you sit and box breathe for 20 minutes and you're just enjoying the breath, guess what? Now you're meditating. And so then we can link that to the next step for us, which is concentration training. And so we'll add either a mantra or imagery or both, so that now we're deepening our powers of concentration. Now we get into box breathing being both good for you, both physically and now mentally. This is mental training.
Yep.
Developing concentration power and attention control, and then imagery, the power of your imagery. So box breathing leads to the development of all these really rich skills that can transform your life from the inside out.
Well, there's so many. I'm glad that we talked about it as we wrap this up for this version, and I'll have you back because there's so much depth to what you're talking about. I actually was doing the box breathing a little bit while you were talking and could even feel that change. And then you add the physical piece in, you have the yoga. I did a headstand right before we started this.
Nice.
Because, I wanted to put myself in that space. And I noticed with our podcast, you took a minute and said, can we just meditate for a second or center ourselves? And so it's amazing how much that we're teaching the same concepts in a beautiful way. And I feel like I've got a fellow warrior out there that's going to inspire 100 million people to 1 billion people, to whatever it takes. We're
doing it together, John, you and me.
We are, like I said, I got that company, healthcare system in Long Island that I want you to talk to. It could be awesome. But how do you think people, as we wrap up, how should they get a hold of you? You've got this powerful new program that I think they should know about. So if someone wants to really, really engage with you, what's the best way?
Thanks. So Unbeatable Mind, the website, unbeatablemindcom, has some great information, but we have a super cool brand new challenge. It's a 30-day course. We call it 30-day challenge to really help you learn these skills and to really focus on and visualize and plan your biggest mission, right? For the next, let's say 12 months. So it's unbeatablemind.com/challenge. Very easy to remember, /challenge. It's a free trial. So if you decide you don't like it, you don't have to pay anything. But what we hope is that, and if you decide you do like it, it's $99, right? So you don't have to make the decision until the end of the 30 days. It's 15 minutes of training a day. And I lead all the training through video, and you'll just get them emailed to you. It's an incredible program. We have a few thousand people. I think I told you I did a presentation on Tony's stage, and we had almost 1,000 people sign up for that training from that.
That's great.
Out of 4,000. That was crazy. I'd love for people to start there, because that's where I get into the box breathing training and the micro goals and the visualization and the mental training. it's probably the quickest, most direct path that I have. And if
Awesome.
people want to learn about me and what other things about me and my books and stuff, then my website is markdivine.com. And of course they can follow me on social media, or if they want to dive right into a book, I recommend Unbeatable Mind, because that's the namesake, and it's a great way to start. And you just see, if you see me staring down the wolf on the cover, you got the right book.
So thank you for unpacking a lot of that at a deep level in this podcast, and for what you're doing. I would say, everyone, I'm signing up for this course, okay? Because I want to be part of this, and I know what everyone should. Hey, let's leave them with a couple of ethos, a couple of mantras, a couple of sayings that you live your life by. You already gave us a few in this podcast, but what are 2 or 3 that you absolutely live your life by?
I have to say that my main mantra all the way from, from SEAL training was, I'm feeling good. I'm looking good. I ought to be in Hollywood.
I love that. That sounds like it's out of the Top Gun movie. I mean, it's one of those lines.
It's one of those lines. Yeah. And
Good.
Again, back to one of my mentors, Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the change. Work on the being and do less. So if you do less things and focus on being better, being more whole, then you're just the combination of those 2 things. They're like so simple. Do less and be more present, be more whole. And, think about that every day. How can I do less things better? And how can I be more present and whole, and take time for breathing and meditation and that walk in nature, or just to be with my wife or my husband or my kids? What a radical change in your life experience you'll have. Hoo-yah.
Hoo-yah. What a way to close it. I'm so grateful. That's it, man. I'm taking that advice too. So grateful. Thanks for not only wearing the shirt, but being a brand image of what Glad to Be Here stands for. Unbeatable Mind is incredible. Everybody stay connected with Mark. And Mark, heart to heart, really felt something special today. Thank you for being here. Glad to be here, sir.
John, I'm glad to be here too.